Alright, in the first part of this video, we're going to use Pro Tools as a workspace to design some drum sounds from scratch. So to do that, first I'm going to create a new track from the track menu. I want it to be a mono audio track, and I'm going to name it Kick and hit Create. Okay, now here's the empty track we're going to use as our workspace to create the kick. And let me zoom in quite a bit. Okay. Now I'm just going to select a small area, and I'm going to use a feature called AudioSuite. I'm going to use this AudioSuite menu to access some plugins, in this case a signal generator plugin, to use as just a one-shot rendering plugin where once I do it I can't go back and adjust it any further. Alright, so signal generator, and the signal generator plugin opens up. It allows me to create or generate a sine wave, a square wave, a sawtooth wave, triangle wave, and two different kinds of noise. I'm going to create a sine wave, and I want the sine wave to be a nice low frequency of 50 hertz. So I'm just clicking in this area, typing in 50, and then when I hit render, it will generate that sound in the area I selected. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, it looks like it did it, although it looks like it did it incorrectly. I'm just going to hit render again while that's still selected. And that looks a little bit more like a low frequency. So let's listen. And it is. It's a nice, quick, low frequency. Okay, now, that's going to be used for the body of the kick drum, the length of it, the resonance of it. And what I need just ahead of that is a little bit of noise to kind of simulate the sound of a drum beater hitting the drum head. So in a smaller space, I'm going to just switch over to noise in this generator. And that space is selected. And when I hit render, some noise gets generated. So now I got a little bit of fuzzy noise and a sine wave after it. Okay, so far so good. We're not there yet. Now I'm going to select the noise again, and I'm going to use the same AudioSuite menu. And I'm going to go to EQ. I'm going to go to 7-band EQ, and I'm going to just filter out, the lows and the highs from this noise until it's like kind of focused around 2 kilohertz. All right, so I'm going to turn on my high pass filter, turn on my low pass filter, and just move these selectors until they both say they're both in the 2000 hertz area, which is 2 kilohertz. Okay, I can just slide these things, or if I prefer, I could just click on this area and just type in 2000. That works too. Okay, so now everything above 2000 or 2 kilohertz is filtered out, and everything below is filtered out, so that's just about all that's allowed to come through. And when I hit render, this is going to change. Maybe I can zoom in. Maybe we'll see the change a little better if I zoom in. Alright, let's watch it when I hit render. Okay, so, now we have something different there. Alright, so that, again, is going to be used at the beginning of this sine wave. So, let's see. I don't need this noise to be that long, because the sound of the beater hitting is going to be much shorter. Okay, so I'm zooming in so I can see what I'm doing. And bring this over. I might kind of increase its volume a little bit, maybe even make it slightly shorter, and then I'm just going to drag it right on top of this sine wave, and I'm going to crossfade it. I'm going to just bring it up so it kind of matches kind of the volume of the sine wave, at least by appearance here. And now I'm going to select a little bit on the sine wave and a little bit into the noise, so both are selected. Then I'm going to use a feature called crossfade. I'm going to get there by hitting Command F, and I get a crossfade dialog box. I'm not going to worry about all these settings. We're just going to use this default crossfade and hit OK. It's going to create a fade between those sounds. Okay, good. So now that's there. It also sort of, by the way, as I'm working here, every time I do a little something, it generates a clip. So like it kind of chopped things up based on what I did here. So that's kind of its own clip. I'm not going to need that beginning anymore. So I just deleted it out of the track. And now I have a little bit of a noisy intro here to this sound, and then the sine wave that continues. Let's see what that sounds like so far. All right, kind of like a click and then the sine wave. Not too bad. All right, now I want to kind of consolidate this, and so it's not actually multiple clips that I have to select when I'm doing things. So I'm going to select the one all the way to the left, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and select all the way to the right. Now the whole thing, you can see this and this are both selected. I'm going to go to the Edit menu and go down to Consolidate Clip, and now a single clip has been created that has, what I did. So, okay, so far so good. So that's low pitch with a little click at the beginning. I'm just going to get rid of this. Okay, so that's coming along nicely. Now, I want to add a little sort of a sonic information to this, so it's not just a pure sine wave. One way to do that is to add some distortion or saturation. So I'm going to make sure that this new clip is selected. I'm going to go back to my AudioSuite. I'm going to go down to harmonic this time, and I'm going to go to this good old handy Sans amp that comes with Pro Tools. And, it has all kinds of settings. I could play with these a lot if I wanted, but I'm just going to turn up this drive because I'm trying to add a little distortion to this sound. And I'm going to hit render, turn it up a bit, hit render, and see what I got here. Got that noise in the beginning. I got the sine wave tail at the end here. Let's listen to this. Okay, not bad. Now, I'm going to select that, and I'm going to click out here. Let's zoom out a little bit here. Let's see, where am I exactly? Okay, I'm going to click out like over here, holding down Shift, and now a larger area is selected. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to now use AudioSuite to put some reverb on this to kind of sort of enhance the resonance kind of thing, to make it sound a little more natural. And I purposely allowed extra space here because I need the tail of the reverb to have some space to be generated. It wouldn't sound right if I only put the reverb on the initial sound here. So shut that down, go back to AudioSuite, go to reverb, and I'm going to go to deverb, which is just a stock Pro Tools reverb. And let's see, I'll go to room. I don't need this to be that big of a reverb. I'm going to, between it being totally wet or totally the original sound, which is dry, I'm going to go 50-50. But most important here, I don't want this reverb to generate any high frequency content. So I want to bring this all the way down, and I'm going to bring the low pass filter all the way down to, so it's only kind of letting the lows through. Yeah, bring it all the way down. All right, now I'm going to hit render and just see what that does here. All right, let's listen to that. Okay, it's not too bad. Now I'm going to, boost this signal up by just turning this little small, let me just zoom in so you can see this little sort of volume fader for the clip itself. I'm going to raise it up so it has a little bit more strength here. I see something funky happened here. Every once in a while something funky will happen. That's problematic, that little spiky thing there. But we'll see if we can fix that. All right, so a couple things here. Let me just listen to it. Okay, not too bad. Now, that might be a little longer than I need for the sound of a kick. Also, I just want to double check and make sure that this noise at the beginning, is not too long. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find a spot here to zoom in on. All right. And two is I want to make sure that it's not making a ticking sound in the beginning. It looks like in that respect it's okay. But you know what? I'm going to make it a little shorter just by sort of trimming the clip down. I got to my trim tool here. Trimming it down. And just to be safe, I might also just do an ever so slight fade in, so I know that nothing's like kind of popping at the beginning. Okay, now same thing on the out here. I want to control like this sort of decay of this, so I'm gonna put a fade on the end, and then I'm gonna just kind of play with how quickly it fades out. Oops, I don't know what I did there. Hold on, I'm hitting undo. There we go. Now listen to this. Okay, now that's okay. That sounds pretty good. It's starting to sound kickish. The only thing that happened here is something really odd with this little spiky thing. Something in the rendering process, something happened. You can see that that's not right. I can try to zoom in on this. All right, so that is making like a little bit of a kicking poppy thing. So I could try to do this. Let me kind of did something weird. Okay, so I can use my pencil tool here since I'm zoomed in very far, and I could try to eyeball this and try to smooth this out. Sometimes it will work and sometimes it won't work. It will create more problems. But let's see. Okay, so I kind of just like use my eyeball. Maybe I ought to make it a little bit more curvy here. I don't know. That might be not so good. Now I'm going to zoom out. That's a little rough looking, and it still has that kind of spikiness. Let's go back to my smart tool. It's probably a little better, but there's still something going on there. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I could always just start again and just render it and make sure that little spiky thing doesn't happen. But I'm just going to let it be for right now. All right, so I want to consolidate this so it's just one clip. So with that fade in there, so I don't have to worry about the fade getting lost. So everything's selected. I'm going to go to Edit, Consolidate Clip. Now the fade is all part of it and everything. So now it's just one thing. And I got a sound of a kick. Okay, cool. I'm just going to close this and we'll move on. Next, we're going to do something very similar for the snare. So let me create another track, new. It's going to be a mono track, an audio track, and we're going to just name it snare because we're going to use this workspace for snare. Hit create. Okay, now I'm just going to, for now, I'm going to mute the kick because we don't need to hear it as we're working on our snare. But it's going to be a very similar process. I'm going to select an area, and I'm going to then use AudioSuite, go down to Other, go to Signal Generator, and then in the case of a snare, I just want this noise. I'm not going to need a sine wave. I'm going to hit Render, and I can close this for now, and maybe I'll make this a little longer. I could always. The nice thing about the Signal Generator is it will sort of, I can just drag it. The information will be there. Okay, so that's good. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the kick itself as the sound of the stick hitting the snare drum. Now, to do that, I'm going to just hold down Option as I drag my kick down into my snare workspace. And I'm going to use AudioSuite again, and I'm going to go to a pitch shift tool here, pitch shift plugin, pitch 2. And I'm just going to bring this up, I think, 2 octaves. Let's see what happens. So, I mean, it's right now that it says, okay, it's here. If I did it here, that would be 1 octave higher. So I'm going to even try 2 octaves higher and hit Render. Okay, so now let's see what this. Okay, now I don't need all that resonance of it. I just want mostly the beginning. Okay, that's not too bad. Now it's going to be a very similar thing that we did with the kick here before. So I have like sort of like the sound of a beater. Let me just do something really quickly. Let me just switch this to loop. So now if this is selected, it won't play into the other sounds. So that's kind of like the sound of a beater or the sound of a stick or something hitting. So I'm gonna actually, in this case, I'm gonna back it off a little bit to make it sort of match that a little better. And I'm gonna drag it on the noise, and I'm gonna do the same sort of thing. I'm gonna sort of crossfade between the noise and the sound of this drumstick, and I'm gonna hit Command F for a crossfade. And I'm going to just let it be its default and hit OK. It makes a crossfade. Okay, now I again don't need this anymore. I might want to zoom in here and just make sure that I'm going to zoom. I'm going to put my selection right here, so when I zoom in, it zooms to that spot. Close this. Get it. Yeah, see, this is what I was suspecting. See how when the sound starts, the line is not on the middle green line. That's not what I want. So I can solve that by a couple ways. I can make a little fade in right here. That would definitely solve it. Perhaps that's the easiest way. I could also trim it until it comes to where the line of the waveform crosses the 0 point, crosses that green line. That would be something I could do. I could drag this over till it crosses there. That would probably solve the problem, right? But maybe a safer way is just to create a little fade in, and then you know that it's just going to amp up and it's not going to come in at a point where the waveform is above or below the 0 point, which usually makes a click or a pop, which is not desirable. Okay, so good so far. Let's just see what that sounds like. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to consolidate this. So again, I'm just going to select all the way to the right, hold down Shift. I meant to say select all the way to the left, hold down Shift, and select the right. So now it's all selected. I'm going to go to my Edit menu and go to Consolidate Clip. Now this is one sound. Okay. Okay, so now it still doesn't sound much like a snare, but we're getting there. I'm going to trim this down to about 240 ticks. Actually, that's about what it is. This tells me the length of it, 240 ticks, so that's good. And I am then going to sort of fade out the tail of this thing. That's with it fading out like that, it starts to have a little bit more of a snare sound. And you can hear that pop of the drumstick at the beginning. Okay, this is getting a little better. Okay, now I'm going to select it all, and I'm going to go to AudioSuite, and I'm going to add some distortion again. So I'll use the same thing we did before, the harmonic menu, and I'm going to go down to Sounds Amp. And see, I maybe don't want to do quite as much as I did last time. Just turn it up a little bit, hit render. Let's see what it sounds like. You can see the waveform has changed. Gives it some character. Starting to sound a little better. Okay, that's good. Now, kind of the same thing we did before. We're going to add some reverb to give it some body here. So I'm going to just make sure there's a lot of space for some reverb tail. So I have this selected. I'm going to bring my cursor way out to here where it says like 480 here. Hold down Shift. Now I have some space where the reverb tail could be generated. And I'm going to go to my AudioSuite menu, go to Reverb, go to Deverb, and I'm going to make sure that it's set to 50/50. And I'm going to bring the high frequency content down quite a bit. And I'm going to hit render, and let's see what that sounds like. That's better. That's better. Okay, so now I'm going to increase the gain. So it's actually got some sound. Okay, that's better. And I'm going to now kind of control the length of it with a fade out. Now that we got the reverb tail there, so I don't know, just do this, see what it sounds like. Okay, it's getting much better. Not too bad. So now I'm just going to go through the idea of consolidating. So so that fade is sort of built into the clip. So it's selected, and I'm going to go to my Edit menu, and I'm going to go Consolidate Clip. So now there's my snare right there. Okay. So I got my kick 2, and my snare 2 are the two things I'm working with. And now we're ready to move on to the next thing. Now the next thing is going to be creating a hi-hat. So again, we're going to need a track to work with or work in. So to the track menu, new, mono audio track. We'll call this hi-hat. Hit create. Okay, and we're going to need to generate some noise again. So I'm selecting area, going to AudioSuite, going down to other, going to signal generator, making sure noise is selected, and hitting render. Okay, we got some noise here. Okay, now hi-hat's not too hard. Basically, we just have to make it really short. So I'm going to just really make it short. I'm going to just check it out, controlling sort of the envelope of the fade, gonna make it a kind of a quick one. Let's see what that sounds like. Oh wait, hold on. I gotta mute the snare so I can only hear the hi-hat. See, right off the bat, that has a nice kind of hi-hat sound. I could put an EQ on here. I don't know. We'll try it. I can go to EQ and I can do 7-band EQ, and I could put a high-pass filter on it, centered around like 1,000. So well, let me try that. It might help, might not. So I'm gonna type in 1,000 hertz, and let's see what it sounds like. Okay, so there's what it will. That's what it's doing. It's like letting only things past 1,000, cutting out any low content that might be there. So render. Okay. Okay, you know, that's probably subtle, but it probably helps somewhat. All right, now, just like all of the rest of them, we gotta, you know, add a little reverb to make it a little more natural, give it some resonance. All right, so I'm leaving some extra space here in my selection. So there's a tail for the reverb. I'm going to AudioSuite. I'll go to Deverb. And in this case, I just want to make sure it's a very light reverb, you know, 25, 20 something. I don't want it to be much. Yeah, it's on Hall large. Okay, I'm going to just leave that. We're just going to see what it does to it. Okay, let's see what this sounds like. Okay, not bad. And now I'm just going to control. I might trim it a little bit. And I'm going to add a fade. Add a fade to sort of control how long it does its thing. There we go. That's not too bad. Now I'm just going to increase the gain so it's got some volume here. Now I got a hi-hat, okay? Not bad. All right, so I might as well consolidate that so it's its own clip. So I make sure it's selected and go to consolidate clip, and now the fade becomes part of it, and it looks like it's hi-hat 1. So the three things I have here are kick 2, snare 2, and hi-hat 1. Okay, very good. I'm going to close this. Now I'm just going to export these three clips that we've created here into a folder in my project folder so I can use them in another plugin, which is like a drum sequencer. Okay, so let's do that. So first I'm going to export this kick. I'll select it so the length of that kick clip is selected. I'm going to unmute the kick, but make sure the other two are muted so these things won't get bounced or exported out of here. Technically, what I'm about to do is bouncing in Pro Tools. So I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to go Bounce Mix. In this case, the only thing that's going to be heard is this one clip that's selected. And I'm going to bounce it in Wave because I don't want it to be an MP3. I want it to be full, uncompressed, full quality. So I'm going to make sure it's Wave. And what I also want it to be is mono. I don't want it to be a stereo track of any sort. So I make sure it's mono. I'm going to leave it at 24 bits. If you're going to process it a lot more further when you use it in another session, you might want to even go higher. But you know, it was made actually in 48 kilohertz and 24, so it's fine to just do that. All right, now I got to choose where I want it to go here. So in this case, I'm going to hit choose, and I'm going to navigate to the project folder here. No, that's not it. Right here, Drum Design 310. And I'm going to actually create a folder to kind of keep it separate from my audio files. I'll call this Drum Sounds. Create. So now there's a folder called Drum Sounds that's in that Pro Tools project folder. And I'm going to hit open, and I'm going to make sure that this first thing I'm saving is not called Drum Design 310, but it's going to be called Kick. Okay. And hit bounce. Cool. So we'll check in a moment. That should be in that folder I created. Now I'm going to just select the snare, and I'm going to unmute the snare but mute the kick. So the only thing that will play is the snare, not the hi-hat or the kick. I'm going to go to my File menu. I'm going to go to Bounce Mix. I'm going to change the name of this to snare and make sure the rest of the settings are the same, which they are, and it's still going to drum sounds. Hit bounce. Very good. Now I'm going to mute the snare, unmute the hi-hat, select the hi-hat, make sure that's the only thing selected, make sure that length is selected, and it's the only thing that's going to play because it's not muted. I'm going to go to File, Bounce Mix, and change this to hi-hat. And yeah, make sure this is all the same, and it's going to the same place, and hit bounce. Okay, actually, there's one more thing I realized I wanted to build, which I forgot about until just now. So I want to make sort of like a crash cymbal. So I'm going to use the hi-hat as the source of this crash cymbal. So I'm just going to hit Option and just drag over, and I'm not going to release Option until I release the click. And now I created a copy. What I'm going to do is a couple things. One is I'm going to just sort of repitch it. So I'm going to go to pitch shift, and I'll just make it like a little bit lower. Like not much, just one key lower. We'll just make it have a different sound than the other one. Let's just listen to that. So I change that. Here's what the hi-hat sounds like. Now here's what my repitched hi-hat sounds like. Yeah, it's down. Maybe let me hit undo, and maybe I'll go maybe slightly more noticeable than that. I'm going to render it down here. Okay. Ooh, look what it did, huh? Here's the hi-hat. All right, that's noticeable. Now it created this, so I'm going to just drag. I'm going to just make sure that there's no beginning to this. So I'm just going to get my trim tool. No empty space, I mean. Of course, we want a beginning, but no empty space at the beginning. And go really down here and just trim it right up. Here's my trim tool. Good. Selection tool, zoom in a little bit more. No, yeah, there we go. Again, I don't really want to I don't want to have any, let me just do this. In case I don't want anything to I don't want the sound to come in when the waveforms are not at the 0 point, which is that little purple line here. So I'll make a little fade just in case. Okay, so there we go. We got our hi-hat pitched down. That's cool. Now, what I'm going to do is kind of select a little extra space here, and maybe not too much extra space, but a little extra space, and then I'm going to go and add some reverb. And I'm going to add a little bit more reverb than I had before. Actually, I think I want a lot more because I want that tail to be stronger than it was. Okay, let's do that. Now let's see what it did. Okay, that's better. And okay, now I just need a nice fade here. Yeah, okay, we'll let it be. It's like somewhere between being an open hi-hat and a crash cymbal, so we'll just let it be an open hi-hat. All right, so now I'm going to consolidate that. Maybe I'm going to run that reverb on it one more time. But I'm going to make sure there's enough room for a bigger tail and make it really wet. Let's see if that helps. I think that does. That helps a little bit. So let's boost that up and then just make sure there's a nice fade out. Maybe like this. Let's see what that sounds like. Good. So, all right, that's something. All right, let me consolidate that again. Consolidate clip. All right, and now let me export that. So again, this is muted, this is muted. This is the only one selected. This is the area that's selected. You can see up here, and you can see this is selected. So if I go to bounce, mix, and I call this, I'll just call it crash, even though it's almost like an open hi-hat, but I'll call it crash. It's still going to the same place. The settings are the same. Hit bounce. Good. All right, now let's go check out that folder and let's make sure it has what we expect. All right, so let's see. Finder, desktop, drum design, and drum sounds, and we have crash, hi-hat, kick, and snare. All right, so there's our 4 sounds. We're in a good place. Nice. Now we'll go on to part 2 and we'll use these sounds in a drum sequencer.